Hi everyone, I'm Brandon and welcome back to NewsForTeens. It's been almost 3 years since COVID-19 was first reported back in December 2019, and about a month ago, the FDA granted emergency use authorization for bivalent mRNA vaccines. If it weren't for the original COVID vaccines, the impact of the virus would be much greater. In this video, I'll talk about the recently authorized bivalent vaccines made by Pfizer and Moderna, how the U.S. Food and Drug Administration made their decision to authorize these vaccines, why it's not unusual to authorize vaccines without clinical trials on people, who is eligible to receive an updated booster, when is a good time to get it, and how the U.S. government is running out of funds for vaccines and therapeutics, which would impact future costs and access to shots and treatments. The very first inoculation to combat COVID took place in Britain in December 2020. Currently, almost 70% of the world population, or 5.38 billion people, have received at least one dose of a COVID vaccine, and around 63% are fully vaccinated. The percentages are higher in the US at 80% and 68% respectively. Prior to September, people in the US were receiving monovalent vaccines and boosters. Focusing only on the mRNA vaccines authorized in the US, a monovalent vaccine contains an mRNA component from only one strain of a virus. In this case, a component from the original strain of SARS-CoV-2. On August 31st of this year, the FDA amended the emergency use authorizations for the Pfizer and Moderna COVID vaccines to include the new bivalent vaccines. As the bi in the name suggests, bivalent vaccines contain mRNA components from two strains of the virus. In this case, the new bivalent COVID single-dose boosters target both the original form of the coronavirus and the Omicron variant, using an mRNA component shared by the Omicron BA4 and BA5 lineages. The BA5 and BA4 Omicron lineages have been and are predicted to continue circulating through the fall and winter. As of October 1st, 2022, the BA5 and BA4 variants account for approximately 81% and 14% respectively, for a total of 95% of US cases. It may come as a surprise to note that the recently approved bivalent boosters were tested only on animals and not people before authorization. This, however, should not be a concern and is the standard practice applied to our yearly flu vaccines. To get ahead of the rapidly changing coronavirus, the FDA based its decision on the totality of available evidence. This includes data from clinical trials of the original vaccines and boosters, ongoing monitoring of the safety of the current vaccines, clinical trials of bivalent BA1 boosters which did undergo testing in humans, and animal studies of the new bivalent BA4/BA5 boosters. Based on the supporting data and the fact that the spike proteins of the BA1, BA4, and BA5 variants are very similar, the FDA determined that the bivalent vaccines from Pfizer and Moderna are safe when administered as directed. So who is eligible to receive the single-dose bivalent booster, also known as the updated booster, and when should you get your shot? First, this information is only really relevant if you're not immunocompromised and have already completed your primary vaccination series. Second, the updated booster can be administered 2 months after a primary or booster vaccination with any authorized or approved monovalent COVID vaccine. If you were recently infected with COVID, some sources suggest waiting at least 3 months from your last infection to help maximize your combined protection from your acquired immunity as well as the updated booster shot. This is because anyone with COVID in the last 3 months likely had an Omicron variant. As with the original vaccine, it takes about 2 weeks after your shot for antibodies to kick in. Here's where we stand on availability in the US. The bivalent Pfizer vaccine is currently available for individuals 12 and older. The bivalent Moderna vaccine is currently available for individuals 18 and older. For now, the Moderna bivalent vaccine is not yet approved for ages under 18, although Moderna expects approval for children 6 to 11 and adolescents 12 to 17 by mid-October. Similarly, Pfizer expects approval for children 5 to 11 in early October. Both companies are also working on approval for bivalent vaccines for the youngest children ages 6 months to 5 years, but that likely won't be approved until later this year. And according to the FDA, a bivalent COVID-19 booster dose can be co-administered with other vaccines, including a flu shot. As for the available monovalent COVID-19 mRNA vaccines that we are already familiar with, the 2-dose Pfizer and Moderna vaccines remain authorized for completion of the primary vaccine series, which are for ages 6 months and older. And since neither of the bivalent vaccines have been authorized for children under 12, the only booster option for children 5 to 11 years old is the original Pfizer single-dose booster, but that will likely change later this month. The last, maybe the most important topic is who's paying for these updated boosters. Currently, there is no cost to access vaccines and therapies since the US government has been covering these costs. However, the updated booster may be the last shot that this applies to. This is because Congress hasn't been able to pass additional funding. In the near future, drug companies and insurers will likely play a much more significant role in deciding how much to charge for boosters and COVID therapeutics. This new phase is sometimes referred to as commercialization. For context, some of the therapeutics cost thousands of dollars per treatment, but that's currently being paid for by the government. Once we're in the commercialization phase, the cost for treatment would likely be the responsibility of individuals receiving the treatment and their insurance companies if insured. As a result, future access to shots and treatment could prove challenging and could lead to spikes in cases and severe illness, particularly among the uninsured, undocumented, and those with low income. Even for those insured, access could be difficult since the US competes globally for vaccines and therapies. Acting as a nation has given US citizens access to new vaccines and therapies that may not be as readily available in the future if negotiating as dozens of small entities instead of the US government. With all these points I've shared in mind, consider taking the opportunity to get your updated booster. The bivalent COVID-19 vaccines are expected to provide increased protection against the currently circulating Omicron variant, known to be more transmissible and immune evading. Thanks for watching, and I hope you learned something new.